My name is Michael Schroeder. I guess I'm the guy right there, I guess. And I'm in this race. I live just outside of Annville in South Annville Township. I've lived here in the Lebanon Valley for about a dozen years. I was born and raised in Minnesota, lived for 20 some odd years in Michigan, raised my children, and came out here in 2008 to take the job at Lebanon Valley College. And I love my job at Lebanon Valley College as a history professor, but I think I can make a bigger difference as your state senator in Harrisburg. I love being a community activist, right? Founder of the Quittapahilla Creek Garbage Museum, this ridiculous Quittapahilla Creek. How many people have been to the Quittapahilla Creek Garbage Museum? Let's see those hands. I've had to move it, actually. I married a woman who didn't want to live in the floodplain. Where is my lovely wife? There she is, back here, Karen. So the Garbage Museum is actually still under construction in its new venue. But I love doing that stuff, being president of the Quittapahilla Watershed Association, because clean water is not a partisan issue, right? Clean air is not a partisan issue. This is not about red versus blue in my vision, as I see it. This is about bringing genuine public service with integrity to Harrisburg, someone who has nothing to lose in this election other than the election itself, right? I love my life as a college professor, teaching these young people every day about history, Mexican history and world history, and about climate change and Brazilian history and so on. I mean, it is really, for me, the ideal job. But I think I can make a bigger difference in Harrisburg. We stand at a pivotal moment here in Pennsylvania and around the country and around the world in many ways. And so, you know, I threw my hat in this race because I think I can make a bigger difference in Harrisburg as your state senator, addressing the issues that are of greatest concern to you. What are the issues that are of top concern to me? If I were asked to identify, and I am being asked now to identify my top 3 issues, I would say first and foremost is healthcare and prescription drugs, right? That healthcare I see as a right. That people in Pennsylvania have a right to affordable, accessible health care and affordable, accessible prescription drugs. I think it's scandalous what's happened, for instance, to the price of insulin and other needed prescription drugs. So just one example, I would get to Harrisburg and propose a bill to put a cap on co-pays for insulin of $100 a month. I've talked to quite a number of diabetics and people who have diabetics in their family who talk about this incredible rise in the cost of insulin. And it's the same drug that has been used for the past, 50 years to deal with diabetes. Why is the price going through the roof? This is not fair. This is price gouging, and it's unfair, and it needs to change. So that's just one example. So affordable accessible health care and prescription drugs. Number 2 is the transition to a clean energy economy. Because, you know, we stand at a pivotal moment with respect to climate change here in the United States and around the world. Greta Thunberg, with whom I stand four square in her assertion that we need to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. And we here in Pennsylvania are at the epicenter of a fracking and pipeline revolution. And so I see part of my job, a big part of my job in Harrisburg, is facilitating a shift away from fossil fuels and toward clean energy. Because I'm convinced that we can sort of unleash the entrepreneurial genius of Pennsylvania businesses and create hundreds of thousands of good paying, family supporting jobs in clean energy, in solar and wind and geothermal and retrofitting old buildings, increasing energy efficiency, reducing waste. Clean energy is far more labor intensive than natural gas and fossil fuels are. Despite industry propaganda, you see these studies that there are 300,000 jobs that have been created as a result of the fracking and pipeline revolutions. And these studies are cooked up and are sponsored by the industry. The actual data, if you dig into the data from the Pennsylvania the Department of Labor and Industry, you see that it's far lower than that. So again, the transition to clean energy, and this is really, I think of it as an exciting opportunity, right? To transition away from fossil fuels and toward clean energy in a way that benefits Pennsylvania working families. Because, you know, one of the major talking points of the industry is, what about jobs? What about jobs? I'm just as concerned as jobs, if not more so, than the industry is. But again, I think that there is tremendous potential and opportunity for creating clean energy jobs across Pennsylvania and shifting away from fossil fuels. Third on my list of priorities, and again, all these things sort of feed together as I see them. I have a kind of a more holistic view of how these things all sort of bind together. Third is education, and how the state over the past years has been negligent in decreasing its contribution to education at all levels, K-12, pre-K, higher ed, vocational and technical training, apprenticeship programs, and so on. If you look at the graph over the past 50 years, from say the 1970s to the present day, the state's share of education has declined from about 50 some odd percent to closer to 30%, shifting the burden to local municipalities, which in turn raises, makes property taxes such a big deal. I'm asked a lot nowadays, where do you stand on property taxes? I see that as very closely related to the whole education debate. All these things are, again, bound up together, right? That because of Pennsylvania's peculiar provision in the Constitution called the Uniformity Clause, which I've fairly recently learned about, running for Senate, that you have to tax the same, income and everything else at the same level. So if I make $10,000 a year and you make $1 million a year, we both pay the same amount in taxes. And so, but there are ways to tax different types of income differently, and to tax income from what I would call wealth income of dividends and capital gains and so on at a higher rate than you tax wages and interest, thereby shifting the burden away from working people and more on those with greater resources. Increasing state funding for education. I think right now Pennsylvania ranks very close to the bottom. Last figure I saw was 47th out of 50 states in terms of the state's contribution to education. So those are probably my top 3 issues. We could talk more about this stuff, about where I stand. I invite you to visit my website at www. Is it on here? No, it's not on there. Schroeder4senate.com with the number 4, where I lay out, I have a page called Values and Issues where I sort of lay all this out, and I invite you to go and review all that material. I think I'll stop there. And again, thank you for coming. And I invite any kinds of questions, comments, concerns about anything having to do with this race or my candidacy. Thank you very much.